Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to sit down and talk about what's been lacking on the channel, especially with the reviews, especially for AAA games that I wanted to play, and such as Street Fighter 6, Tears of the Kingdom, and specifically for this video, FF16. I wanted to talk about FF16 because this game particularly had a lot of hype to it. There was a lot of hype and excitement and anticipation behind it, being that it was the next mainline Final Fantasy game at the time, you know, being the 16th and stuff like that. But, you know, aside from all the spin-offs and whatever, but it's Final Fantasy 16, right? You know, how could any Final Fantasy fan not think that, right? As someone who's been getting into the Final Fantasy circle myself over the years, especially with 7 Remake and stuff like that, and also 15 and stuff and all that stuff, I was looking forward to it, and I did get a good amount of hours in it. It's not that didn't get to play it at all, but I didn't really get to finish it. And there's two main reasons why, and they're very apparent, very potent, I guess is one word to put it. One of them obviously was the fact that these games this year, dude, this year alone, it has been jam-packed because of all the delays and stuff happening throughout this year. I mean, throughout the recent years, especially during the COVID pandemic type of times. All those delays are starting to, you know, sort of spill out this, so essentially the dam, you know, breaking or releasing rather. And there's a lot of games, and on top of that, all the media to consume, streaming series, anime, movies, TV shows, so on and so forth. And that's what I wanted to say that was one of the issues, right, that I've been having. There's just so much to do with yet only the same amount of time that you have, if not less, depending on your life. And around that time too, I was going through some rough stuff with the job stuff, you know, I was let go, and then I was picked up right after, and then July was like my beginning month for my new job and stuff like that. By the way, it's been going well, but the issue here was that, yes, the schedule was an issue. Like the time that I had in the past is definitely not the same, and that's definitely one issue that I think does play a part for why I haven't been able to finish Final Fantasy 16. But with that said, there are times where I could have put the time into FF16. I could have gone out my way, sure, to really tunnel my vision to finish 16, but I just allowed myself not to do that. And here comes the next reason why. And this reason is like the most apparent sort of flaw that I've seen or I feel with this game, and it's the gameplay of itself. And specifically the combat. That's like the huge part of this game, the combat. I was going in hoping that this would be like a really cool action game and stuff like that, with that Final Fantasy quality to it. While it does deliver on like the story, the cinematics, and the graphics and everything, the visual gravitas and all that stuff, the characters are fun, you know, especially with Sid early on, and so on and so forth. The stuff that's also important for a video game, well, the video game of itself was quite shallow, or is quite shallow for the most part. And especially during the beginning, it's really slow. You don't have much to do with your attacks. It's just so repetitive early on. But it just, I don't know, I think the base core of this game is pretty repetitive throughout overall. Yeah, you do have the set pieces, like the boss fights, the monsters, you know, fighting each other and stuff like that. That stuff is like alright, or pretty good, but it's really, to me, it's pretty shallow. As someone who has been playing a number of action games, including Metal Gear Rising, Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, so on and so forth. So I feel like, you know, going into this definitely felt like watered down. It's essentially like a term that I've heard across a number of people with a similar sort of palate. It's like when you had that really good $200 whiskey, right? And you try to go back to and you go try out the mainstream, like, accessible whiskey. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same, and it's kind of like the same. It's kind of like the similar effect here, right? I'm kind of dealing with 16's combat. It just feels like a simplified, watered down version of what I was expecting, especially with the battle designer being from the same Devil May Cry series, right? Devil May Cry 5 to be more specific, and it had like a lot of big names behind it, like, Yoshi P and the composer, right? And like essentially it had all the Final Fantasy building blocks, but the core video game of itself overall has been a disappointment to me, and that's why I kind of like put it to the side over and go play like Genshin Impact and all the updates for Star Rail, and not to mention, as of late, I've been playing Cyberpunk, Sonic Frontiers DLC, and like watch Gen V and stuff like that. Like, I just put time into everything else but Final Fantasy 16, because while, yeah, the story is fascinating, all that stuff, the video game of itself is something I don't look forward to as much, and that of itself is disappointing for me. So that's really like the core, like the two of the core reasons why I've been putting away Final Fantasy 16 many a times, which is causing me to not finish it for a long while now since release, with having this come out during June, right? So it's close to being 6 months, man. But yeah, I mean, yeah, again, time does play a part, but me not making up for the time, putting the time into it, is because mostly it's the gameplay. I just don't feel as compelled to play it, if I, otherwise it's kind of like a movie game, and I'm not here to play a movie. I'm here to play a video game. And if the video game is not as fun as I want it to be, then of course I'm more likely to not prioritize it and instead play games like, well, Cyberpunk and Sonic Frontiers. So that's just me. Obviously, I'm not trying to say this like, oh, you should feel this way, blah, blah, blah. This is just me, right? And the reason why, I haven't reviewed this game at this point, because I haven't finished it, and I haven't finished it because the video game of itself is disappointing. It's a kind of a letdown. I mean, it's not, objectively a terrible game or anything like that. It's just very watered down, and it's very more like on the casual side of things. It doesn't really lack the depth I was looking forward to. I mean, it really comes down to, breaking the enemy with the same attacks that break really good, and then you just go ham on the damage when they're broken. That is essentially the loop, and I just, especially if it's like the same attacks, it's like, it's definitely not the same as with Devil May Cry alone. For example, Devil May Cry has a lot of depth to it. I mean, I'm not great at it, but at least there's the option to do all this stuff, right? And even if you do get more attacks later on, I think the core aspect of it, the core loop of it, is just like, it just doesn't feel like the game I was looking forward to overall. It became apparent once I was finished with the Hugo chapter, or saga, what do you want to call it. Now, yes, eventually I will like to finish it at some point, sometime maybe in November, or maybe later on in October, perhaps. But that's just something I wanted to mention overall, as a whole. And it kind of sucks because this game has not been selling as fast as Square Enix would like it to. It's selling, I guess, but You know, maybe there is a reason why it isn't selling as well. And maybe a part of it is the simplified gameplay. That's really all I have for my reasonings and stuff like that for 16 kind of being on the backlog, even though this was like super hyped up and stuff like that. And I was looking forward to it before release. That's just my current outlook on it right now. Again, it's not a bad game, just not for me entirely. And I want it to be for me from the start, but you know, it's kind of hard to kind of get into it like fully, you know. And really, not to mention, like the in-betweens tend to really slow it down. Like once you're done with like that big cinematic fight, it like boom, like it just gets super mild, right? It doesn't quite do a good job like revving the engine and then slow down and go to a cruise. It kind of becomes a snooze fest in between, if I'm going to be honest. So maybe that also is the more smaller parts that add up to a detriment as well. But again, I will repeat this. It's really the combat that's letting me down, you know, for me, you know, just it doesn't just have that same depth. It looks cool, but if you're gonna see it over and over again, it just lacks that appeal quickly, right? It's gonna lose that appeal quickly. Again, that's all I have, so I'm gonna put a stop right here. So wanted to thank you guys for tuning in for this video. Really appreciate it. If you have any comments about 16, if you agree with my comments or not, or my feelings towards 16 specifically, leave it down below. But I'd love to check them out. And oh yeah, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Really do appreciate the continuing support. Yeah, so that's just kind of where I'm at right now. When it comes to tiers and stuff like that, I mean, it's mostly like time. I do want to play it, right? But time, you know. So eventually I'll get those done. I'll probably like rush through to at least 2 of the 3 games, and then we'll go from there, hopefully. So that's all I got. Thank you very much, and hope to see you all in the next video. Sean out.